Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Officer Cadet Harrison Leonard. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which he remained true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard their record, which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to driver Roy Edward Francis Sadler. Roy Sadler was born in Pilliga, New South Wales in 1896 to Edward and Jane Sadler. His father owned a property on the Pilliga Road called Cardonis, and Roy grew up around Wee Waa, where he attended the local public school. He went on to become a labourer. Sadler enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in August 1915, 2 months short of his 19th birthday. He began training with the Light Horse, first in Australia and then in Egypt. He spent some time in hospital with the mumps, and a few months after his return, he transferred from the Light Horse to the artillery. He arrived in England in June 1916, and a few weeks later was sent to fight on the Western Front. Sadler saw service in a number of different units before transferring to the 10th Field Artillery Brigade, joining the 110th Australian Howitzer Battery as a driver to complete its establishment. Life in the artillery was dangerous. The enemy's artillery constantly searched for Australian guns, hoping to put them out of action. And the men of the artillery were handling explosives and other dangerous material on a daily basis. On the 14th of June 1917, Sadler's battery was stationed near Messines in Belgium. They had a dump of ammunition nearby in order to supply their guns as they fired them. A German shell hit this dump and it went up in a massive explosion. 16 men were killed outright and another 3 would die of their wounds. Driver Sadler was killed in the blast. His name appears on a monument that was erected by his comrades nearby, and he was buried in Kandahar Farm Cemetery in Belgium. His parents in Australia wanted a reference to John chapter 14 verse 2 to appear on his headstone. In my Father's house there are many mansions. Son, I go to prepare a place for you. Unfortunately, there were too many letters, and in the end, they settled on the simple words, "May his soul rest in peace." Their son was just 20 years old. Roy Sadler's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died during the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember driver Roy Edward Francis Sadler, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.